What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into a live edition of Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here hanging out with you guys on Halloween. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. We've got a lot of ground to cover, some really important notes for Week 9 in Atlanta against the Cowboys. But I just want to get the pulse of everyone watching right now. Who you got? Falcons or Cowboys? Producer Reed was called up to the big league tonight. He's helping out with our Raiders channel. So lucky us. The backup is Joey Peterson, a fellow Tennessee grad. So you got two Einsteins in the room. But he's also a Cowboys fan. So Joey, do you want to share with our lovely audience what we were talking about just moments before we went live?
Yeah, the Cowboys suck.
This
is one of the worst teams in my lifetime.
Honestly, I'm curious to know how you handle this question and our audience handles this question. In a situation like this where you are talking with someone who's a fan of the other team, do you want them to rag their own team, or do you want them to be confident about it? Because I never like when talking to someone, say in this scenario here, and they're like, yeah, we suck. And it's like, don't say that, because now you're trying to double jinx it or something.
No, I get what you're saying, and usually I am exactly like that. I don't like when people talk bad about their team. Like when I went to go see Tennessee play in Oklahoma, every Oklahoma fan we talked to was like, "You guys are going to curb stomp."
I hate. Never say that to me.
So mad.
Yes.
And so I'm usually not like that. However, this is a different team. This is a different year, and they truly do suck.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Let's see. We got some ATLs coming into the chat right now. Over 123 people watching with us, so appreciate everyone for filing on in. Make sure to like the video as you guys grab your seats. But let me know who you got, Falcons or Cowboys. I'm going to save my true analysis for the video, but spoiler, it's not good news for Joey. Shout out your city for me in the chat as well. Always good to see where everyone is watching from. It's a blast to see how far and wide NFL fan bases stretch. We've had viewers come in from Germany all the way to the West Coast, like Jason in San Diego. I know we've had people watch all the way up in Maine, so we're getting all corners of the country and the globe here. Grand Limousine typing in ATL. Pierre's watching from Virginia. I've got Valdosta, Georgia here. Houston in the house. Jason, I think, is in Maine. Dark Ham is in Dover. Jack is in Utah. Virginia Beach, Tallahassee. We've got PA in the house. Mason B watching from the middle of the country-ish, middle left. Denver, Colorado. Nebraska, Georgia. Cumming, Georgia in the house. Atlanta, Kissimmee, Florida. Hanging out with Mickey Mouse. Chris is in Virginia. Reno, Nevada. Marlon, as always, is tuning in from Tracy, California. And we got Berlin. I called it. And ATL fan in Bismarck, North Dakota. So, while you guys are shouting out your city for me in the chat, I do want to tell everyone really quickly watching about an awesome sponsor of ours, which you guys are familiar with, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks, by the way, calls the Peach State home, but it's also America's #1 daily fantasy sports app where all you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's show is also made possible thanks to our great friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an incredible feature called Game Time Picks, and what that does is it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to spend 30 to 60 minutes searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information for you all in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. We will have a mailbag, by the way, at the end of today's episode, so start getting those questions in early and often. Use hashtag Falcons or super chat. If you super chat, we guarantee your question gets on screen for everyone watching to see. If you're unable to super chat, not an issue at all. Just use hashtag Falcons in the chat, and our software will find it, pull it, and give it over to producer Joey, who then picks his favorite questions. And bada bing, bada boom, you are on screen. But I do want to give some love right now to the Dirty Birds Club. Appreciate you guys so much for supporting our channel. I saw Jose Santana's in the chat already, along with Archangel. But big shout out to everyone in the Dirty Birds Club. If you want to get added to the club, a $100 super chat during our watch parties, which will be back soon, I promise, and we'll add you to the club. Okay. So we got some cities coming in the chat here. We got 166 people watching. I've got Kingsport, Tennessee. I've got Lawrenceville, Georgia. Dark Ham is asking a question, and Joey has a question of his own. Favorite Halloween candy. So I'll open up by saying I'm not a big Halloween guy. My mom's birthday is today, and I remember when I was young, I was always like, for her, upset that no one celebrated her birthday and everyone celebrated Halloween. Like 5-year-old me thought that was injustice. So ever since then, I was like, I don't want to dress up for Halloween for mom's birthday. And I was like, it's okay, you can do that. I was like, no, I'm boycotting. And so I never really caught on to Halloween. It's never been something I've attached myself to very much. Also, might be a surprise based on my figure, I'm not a big candy guy. I've got my vices. It's not candy. I don't like candy. I don't like getting my fingers sticky. I don't really like chocolate. Just, it's not my cup of tea. I don't know.
I like candy. I'm not like Sperry level with candy.
Yeah.
Where like I would eat a brownie or ice cream over candy any day.
Oh, I'm in the same boat.
It.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like chocolate ice cream. When I say I don't like chocolate, I mean like chocolate bars.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, not a big candy guy, but let's see. Any king size bars, that works. Archangel likes chocolate. Cade, what's my favorite food? Favorite food, I mean, you can't beat a steak dinner. If it's not something super mainstream like that, I would say a deeper cut of a favorite food of mine. I'll tell you what, I love corn dogs. Corn dogs, Jackie. If I see a corn dog as a concession item at a sporting venue or something, I have to get it. I am addicted to two things at sporting venues. I've been to a Rangers game with Joey. He knows one, and that is 50-50 raffle tickets. I always play. I'm still searching for that first win, and I love corn dogs.
I'm a big pretzel guy at sporting events. Always have been.
I don't like them at sporting events. I like them at a bar. I don't know why, but I separate the two a little bit.
And with the beer cheese?
Yeah,
I
love the beer cheese, yeah. Okay, what's my favorite movie/show? Okay, show, Office. And I know that might be pretty basic, but I take pride in being an OG Office viewer. I would watch Office episodes, episode by episode when they came out, and download them on iTunes. And I'm rewatching it for the 100th time right now. I just finished the episode last night of Gay Witch Hunt, when
it's a good one.
Jim sends the gaydar at the end of the episode, and Dwight goes over his own belt. Oh, no.
Dude, I haven't watched that one in a long time.
Yeah.
Was that early season 2?
That's early season 3.
Early season 3.
Yeah.
I forget season 1. It's so short.
Uh-huh. And then favorite movie, there's so many good movies, but movies I will always rewatch: Miracle on Ice from a sports standpoint, and Step Brothers from a comedy standpoint. And then I love Django Unchained from like I don't know if I call it action, but kind of action, like a Quentin Tarantino style movie. Okay. Do I think we can get Josh Hines Allen? No, I don't think the Jags will go that far in their sales. But coming up on today's show, we are going to talk about some of the latest news and rumors, especially for this Week 9 matchup, which is going to feature some of the Dallas starting Cowboys lineup, but not all of it. Then a trade rumors roundup, just what I'm hearing and what's out there right now going into Tuesday's NFL trade deadline. So we got that along with our mailbag. Use hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, we guarantee it gets on screen for everyone watching to see. 168 people rocking and rolling with us right now. 47 likes. We need 3 more likes. We gotta get to 50. Gotta get to 50. Maddie, guess who I am for Halloween? That's a really tough challenge. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna play the odds right now. I'm gonna go with the witch. I think that's got to be top 5 Mount Rushmore or top 4 Mount Rushmore Halloween costumes?
I'm going to go Cat.
Cat? Okay, I like that one.
Or Calais Campbell.
That would be quite the setup. Step Brothers and The Office are 2 movies that I can quote blindly. When I was a freshman in college and rushing a fraternity, I was the Office pledge. And what people would do, true story, my job would be they would just send me a picture of just a picture of them watching The Office. And based on that picture alone, I had to tell them what episode it was. And so,
how'd you do?
I did very well.
I bet.
I always kicked ass.
I'm curious to see how.
Now,
I
like
did
some
that.
pictures you can kind of easily tell, but other ones, if it's just Michael at his desk,
Yes, that's hard.
it's tough.
Because
But
they wear like the same things every episode.
I can tell by a couple things. One, Steve Carell lost weight as the show went on. He was kind of chubby in season 1.
Yeah.
He also changed his hairdo.
Yes.
That's a big tell. Jim also kind of cleans up his hair as he goes along in the season. So when I say I love The Office, I really mean I love The Office.
I feel like Pam is a pretty good tell as well.
Pam's clothes changed a lot too.
Yeah, and just her hair, her face, everything about her.
Yep. Okay. Spooky. I'm looking for the Halloween. Oh, he's a Falcon. Oh, okay, like you a player or a bird? Falcon the bird's pretty badass. I also love Medieval Times, and they always have a falcon kind of fly around.
I've never been.
Oh, we gotta go. I'll pay anyone's ticket for Medieval
Christmas
Times.
party.
I've been pushing for Medieval Times Christmas party since day 1 here, Joey. I have not had much success. I also want to do it for my birthday, but this will sound really depressing. I don't think anyone would come. It might be tough rallying the troops.
For Medieval
I think
Times.
it might be tough. Okay, let's get into it, though. We're going to lose all of our audience. Let's start and talk about some of the injury news, but just some of the things at play here for Sunday at home against the Cowboys. I'm ready if you guys are ready. Let's start the show. Welcome on into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with some big news to talk about, and that is Dallas Cowboys are not just limping into Atlanta. They've got a wheelchair and a whole bunch of Band-Aids on right now because they are likely going to be down a lot of key players. So let's start with the latest Cowboys injury report that came out on Thursday, and that has Darnell Bland, their starting corner, who has not played yet this year because of a foot injury he suffered before the season started, but they did activate him off injured reserve. He still has not practiced. And then his other corner, Trayvon Diggs, also not practicing with a calf injury. So they were hopeful that Darnell Bland could make his season debut on Sunday. That's not off to a very good start with his inability to practice. But Diggs, who has been starting and playing for them all season long after missing much of last year with a torn ACL he had in practice, he is now missing practice with a calf injury. So you're already kind of down one starting corner because you haven't had Bland all year, but now you're down potentially another starting corner that you have had all year, which is, let's be honest, we don't celebrate injuries, but pretty good news for the Atlanta Falcons receiving core and a pretty good break for Kirk Cousins. Plus, Stephon Diggs I got my Diggses mixed up. This is on me here. This is not about the other Diggs. Ready to see those young boys. I thought this was treated from the Trayvon Diggs. So that's a bad L for me right there. I was like, oh, is he hinting at the young corners? Oh no, it's his brother. So ignore this part. But let's start talking about the the Cowboys cornerback room because they are, like I said, pretty banged up with Diggs hurt and Bland trying to make his debut. And beyond those two guys, there's not a whole lot to like here. Andrew Booth, the former Minnesota Viking, a second-round pick out of Clemson, he was traded in a player-for-player swap. And anytime he sees the field, Joey, our producer today, a Cowboys fan, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a disaster, more or less. Yeah, Joey just gave me a big nod. So could be a big day for Drake London and Darnell Mooney. The two receivers have over 500 yards each. The Falcons are the only team with two receivers with having 500 yards or more, and they are going to go up against a depleted Cowboys DB room. Plus, Dallas is already looking to bench one of their starting safeties, so on top of all those injuries, things are not very good in the Dallas Cowboys secondary. And for that reason, I'm feeling a blowout. I am sensing an ass kicking. I feel like this is a game where it all comes really crashing down for the Cowboys, because that kind of already happened a little bit with the Niners, but at 3-4, you're not really all that out of it. At 3-5, you're still not all that out of it, but when it's on the road and against a team that Cowboys fans feel like they should beat because their franchise is just more famous than the Falcons, it's going to be a big glass of cold water to the face for Cowboys fans. Another reason why I'm feeling a blowout is it's not just because of the depleted secondary for Dallas. How about the ground game in the trenches? Under first-year DC Mike Zimmer, the Cowboys' run defense ranks dead last in yards allowed, giving up 154. Now, the Falcons' run game isn't one of the best in the NFL. They put up 120 yards per game, but they also aren't very committed to the run. They are tied for 16th in carries. Meanwhile, the Cowboys' run defense, by the way, they have the 10th most carries against, and they still are the worst rushing defense in football. There are 9 teams that have had the ball run on them more and have given up fewer yards per game than Dallas. So for Atlanta, it's pretty simple. Stick to the run, and you're going to be golden, like every other team that has played Atlanta this year. But you don't have to run the ball every single time because you've got Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney and Drake London, and the trio right there has put up monster numbers this year, being the only team with 2 receivers with 500 yards or more. So for me, it doesn't matter how you slice it up or dice it up. You want to run the football? Have at it. You're going up against the worst run defense in football. You want to air it out? Have at it. It's a Cowboys defense that doesn't have their 2 starting cornerbacks most likely. So with that all being said, who do you think scores the first touchdown for the Falcons on Sunday? Usually, I have a little bit of a jinx on this channel, and I understand where that comes from. Don't get me wrong. But when I say I'm sensing a skull fucking on Sunday, I'm sensing one. I'm thinking 49-14. Like earlier, I kind of made it a little bit close. Oh, no. I think this is going to be an absolute ass kicking. I'm thinking 21 points in the first quarter. I'm thinking they're talking about Mike McCarthy replacements by halftime. That's how confident I am in this game. Next injury report to watch for, it's the right guard for Dallas, Zach Martin. The All-Pro hasn't really been his usual All-Pro self this year, and I'll expand on that in just a moment, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury, which might be good news for Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata, and kind of get them going a little bit. But first, I want to give a quick shout-out to our sponsor today, and that is Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I love about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. When you toggle this, it'll show you the total upfront cost, so that way you're not hit with a bunch of surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So getting back to the Zach Martin portion of the video, he is dealing with a shoulder injury, and on top of that, it looks like Father Time might be catching up for the former Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I mean, by PFF's metrics, he is the 34th best guard out of 77. He's still a good quality guard, but he's not playing at the usual All-Pro, Pro Bowl level that Cowboys fans are accustomed to seeing him. So with that, this could really open things wide open for guys like Grady Jarrett and Onyemata, who Atlanta just needs to get going because they're not getting anything from Judon or Ebiketie. So if they can't find it from the exterior, they're going to have to find it from the interior. And you've got a banged-up guard in Mount Martin. You've got a rookie center in Cooper Beebe. And you've got a rookie left tackle as well to hopefully exploit with Matthew Judon. To me, all of this kind of puts together the perfect storm for the Cowboys, and that is their offense is going to have a really tough time getting things going with that defense hopefully playing hungry. But on top of that, the defense for Dallas, they're really banged up. I mean, not just the secondary, but also the pass rush, which we'll look at in a moment. But for every single Falcons pass rusher out there for every single Falcons pass rusher watching right now, this is your last chance to stop a trade. You need to show Terry Fontenot something to make him believe that he should not give up one of his precious draft picks he has remaining for a Zadarius Smith, a Trey Hendrickson, and Azeez Ojulari, and to stick with the roster he has right now. Because this literally is your last chance. The NFL trade deadline is Tuesday, November 5th, and if he walks out of that stadium thinking, I've given these guys 9 weeks and we have 6 sacks to show for, I have to make a move or else I'm probably going to be the next one that goes. Before we move on to the second half of today's video, I was looking over the YouTube analytics, and since Monday, we have picked up 179 new subscribers. So, I love all of our new subs, but we are still trailing our Cowboys channel here at Chat Sports, but not by a huge margin. We can close this gap. So go ahead and subscribe right now to kind of get the ball rolling on what's going to be, like I said, a skull fucking on Sunday. Fourth player on the injury report of note, linebacker Micah Parsons. For a second straight day, Parsons did not practice as he continues to battle an ankle injury he suffered against the Giants back in Week 4. And at this point, they probably would have been better off putting him on injured reserve and not burning a roster spot on someone who wasn't going to play for the next 4 or 5 weeks. But Parsons this year through 4 games had a sack and 6 QB hits. I mean, we all know how awesome Micah Parsons is. Look at the numbers he put up from 2021 to 2023. He's one of the best pass rushers and run stoppers and just overall playmakers at defense. I feel like Micah's probably one of the few guys, if you had to build a team of one player starting at all 22 positions, Micah might be one of your best bets. I mean, he's just that well-rounded of a football player. But Kirk Cousins in his career, I mean, clearly this kind of speaks for itself, is a much more winning quarterback when he is not sacked as often. And that's true for a lot of QBs. Don't get me wrong. This isn't groundbreaking numbers, but it's definitely worth pointing out that you sack him 0 times or 1 time, he's got a pretty dominant winning record against you. When you get to him 2 or 3 times, things change a lot. No Micah Parsons, no Tank Lawrence. That's going to be tough for Dallas. Now for some Atlanta Falcons injury news of their own. Orlando Ledbetter tweeted out, talked to Falcons linebacker Troy Anderson in the locker room today, and he's pretty optimistic about returning this week. That would be awesome for the Falcons. They have missed Anderson since he went down in the Saints game with a knee injury. Every single week it feels like he's getting a little bit closer to returning, but ultimately just can't quite get over that hump, and hopefully on Sunday they can get him back because they really need a healthy linebacker back. Caden Ellis is too busy trying to rush the passer and play his usual position. Nate Landman, who came back from IR after going down in Week 1, he does not look healthy out there, but they have to start him because the rookie Bertrand, when he started for Anderson and Landman, it was kind of a disaster at that spot. And also, Bertrand is in concussion protocol right now. So the Falcons really need to get Anderson back because they are really shorthanded at the inside linebacker position. Before we go, on yesterday's video, I asked to name a random Atlanta Falcon. And wow, did you guys answer the call. But I want to highlight one viewer in particular who went above and beyond. He gave me random Falcons at nearly every position group. So Drama Team ENT, kudos to you, man. You came up with some awesome ones. Michael Jenkins catching the first touchdown pass from Matt Ryan. You got a fullback involved. You never see fullbacks get some love. We got D'Angelo Hall. I always think of him more as a Redskin, but that's just kind of my age showing a little bit. So kudos to you, Drama. Drama is like my least favorite character in Entourage, but you're my favorite Drama Falcon viewer, that's for sure. As always, I want to give some love to the Dirty Birds Club for being such loyal and devout supporters of the channel. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us every single episode. If you want to get added to the club, a $100 super chat during our watch parties, those will be back starting for the Saints game. I'm really sorry, just scheduling-wise, it hasn't worked out super duper well the last couple of weeks, but we are through the rough patch almost, and it should be smooth sailing after this. Grand Limousine with a $20 super chat. Let's go, Mr. Grand Limousine.
That's what I'm talking about.
There we go. Grand Limousine, the unofficial limousine sponsor, by the way, Joey, of Falcons Today. I know they have limousines in Atlanta and Houston, and there's one more city, and I think it's either Vegas or Phoenix, but I can't remember. But if you ever need a limousine, support them because they support us, and you love us. So it's a great triangle right there.
It's like a good pyramid scheme.
I was thinking, what's a good Bermuda Triangle? We need to think of a good Bermuda Triangle. I love this from Kaz Shorter. Like the video. Like the live, y'all. Love it. We got 264 people watching right now. Thank you all so much. Make sure to like the video. We're almost at 100 likes. Okay, so overall, I'd say the Falcons got some pretty good news when it goes into this week in terms of the injury side of things between their injury report and the Cowboys injury report. You never want to jinx it, but all things considered, Atlanta's pretty healthy right now. I mean, you just think about the week 1 starters. Virtually everyone's still starting. Like, you haven't lost a single offensive starter to injured reserve. Drew Dahlman, but I'm thinking like long-term IR. No defensive starters been lost for the season, right? So, knock on wood, but they've been healthy so far this year.
When's their bye week?
Their bye week is not for a little bit.
Okay.
It's week 9. It's not week 10. They play the Saints week 10. Then they play the Broncos on the road, and that'd be week 11. I think it's week 12.
Okay, gotcha. So they got a little later one. So it's
week
good
12.
that they're healthy.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you. Felipe Franks. Didn't he just get injured?
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
I think he got injured for the Panthers. Yes, because I didn't even know he was on the Panthers. We got some questions coming in from Willie. Willie, please use hashtag Falcon somewhere in your chat. That way our software can find it, pull it, and give it to Joey, who can put it on screen. Tyman, where's Reed? Reed is pitching in with our Raiders channel tonight. We had to shuffle some pieces around. Some other guys weren't available. So Reed got the call up to the big leagues. So Joey goes from single A to double A.
Amen.
Okay, so next up on the show, I want to talk about some of the trade rumors out there. A little bit of a mixture of Falcons trade rumor, like general NFL trade rumors, and how it applies to the Falcons, if that makes some sense. Gabriel, appreciate your question. We'll definitely include that in our mailbag later on. All right, 245 people watching right now. We're at 94 likes. We need 6 more likes for 100. Once we get to 100 likes, we'll dive into the trade rumors out there before the NFL trade deadline, Tuesday, November 5th. How many times have people made really unfunny jokes about that day being another important day? I'm guilty of it, by the way.
Yeah, I just on yesterday's live.
Yeah.
On Commanders Live.
It's like, if you had $1 for every time someone said, it's another really big day in this country. I'll tell you right now, by the way, Adam Schefter is going to have a really corny tweet about it.
He has to.
He's going to tweet out something like, Tuesday, November 5th will be a day that dramatically alters the direction of our country. It is the NFL trade deadline. And it's
you
like,
might
Adam,
be word for word.
I think I kind of nailed that word for word. Someone record that and come back to me on Tuesday, because he's going to do that at 8 a.m. bright. Tuesday, November.
With Adam, it's going to be like 5 a.m.
Yeah, true. That's also true. Okay. Are we ready? Is it November 5th on Tuesday or 4th?
November 5th is Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's jump into some trade rumors out there. We're at 100 likes. By the way, if you want to get a shout out like Grand Limousine, super chat, and we'll throw it on for everyone watching to see. Hey everyone, welcome on into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. On today's episode, we're just going to round up the latest NFL trade rumors and see how it applies to the Atlanta Falcons, who have an obvious need that I don't think I need to really say one too many times, and that is edge rusher. So, with that being in mind, I do want to share what draft picks Atlanta has. This is always kind of a tough number to track down. The website I go off of, which is like Pro Transaction Sports, forgot to include the Taylor Heineke one. So they've got 5 picks by my count, but these things are always kind of tough to track when you've got a lot of trades from previous years involving conditional picks in the future. But for now, just keep your eye on this right here. But let's start with the first trade rumor that I think could be a big swing for the Falcons, and that is Browns defensive end Za'Darius Smith. He's a versatile player. He's played in both schematic fronts. He's been a 4-3 defense. He's also been in a 3-4 defense. So it wouldn't be too tough of an adjustment for him to go from a 4-3, which he currently plays in Cleveland, to a 3-4, which is what he played in Minnesota and Green Bay before he went to the Browns. But Za'Darius Smith, to me, might be the belle of the ball in terms of realistic and available trade candidates at the NFL trade deadline. Here's what Mike Jones from The Athletic recently wrote on Smith. The Browns could listen to inquiries about the 32-year-old Smith, but there's a hesitancy to unload him as well because of a belief within the organization that a season turnaround isn't out of the question. That belief will likely prompt the Browns to hang on to Zadarius Smith. And so far this year, he's been their, just by the numbers, number one pass rusher. He's got 5 sacks. That leads the team, but obviously it's still Myles Garrett's defense. But as we watch the rest of this video, I invite all Falcons fans watching to kind of keep these guys in mind as you watch football on Sunday to go, ooh, a win here or a loss there could increase or decrease the likelihood of that player getting traded. My prediction when it comes to 99 for the Browns, I don't think he's going to go to the Falcons. I think he's going to go to the Detroit Lions. I think they have a little bit more desperation for a true edge rusher after losing Aiden Hutchinson. Plus, the Falcons have just given me nothing to work with to actually believe they are going to go out and make a seismic addition. And Zadarius Smith would be a seismic addition. I think he goes for a 4th or a 5th round draft pick. The Falcons don't really have a whole lot of picks right there in the early portion of day 3. Now, when the trades start flowing, we're going to be breaking it down here on the channel. So don't miss anything on Tuesday, November 5th. That's the NFL trade deadline. Go ahead and subscribe right now. Help us get to 29,300 subscribers. Next player to watch for is Giants edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, a Georgia native from Marietta, went to UGA, and now he's on a Giants team that is not only not very good, they are 2-6, but they don't really have a big role for him because they traded for Brian Burns, and their former top 5 draft pick, Kayvon Thibodeau, has been outshining Ojulari, a former 2nd round draft pick of theirs, which could free up Azeez for a team like the Falcons. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tough. The Giants at 2-6 are definitely going to be the opposite of buyers. They might not be big sellers, but they are definitely going to be listening to phone calls. My question is, are the Giants desperately trying to trade Ojulari away? Probably not. The edge rusher position is probably the second most valuable position in football these days. After quarterback, it goes stopping the quarterback, and that's done with a good pass rusher. So even if he's not a starter on this team, the Giants probably like having a nice rotation at that position. So if you're going to pry Ojulari away from New York, you're going to have to give him a really good offer. And I get concerned that the Falcons might not be able to make a very good offer because they don't really have the deepest of pockets after giving up a 3rd round draft pick for Matthew Judon and losing a 5th round draft pick for allegedly tampering with Kirk Cousins. So ultimately, I think they might get priced out for Ojulari. Speaking of getting priced out, it's going to be tough for Trey Hendrickson. If you thought maybe the first 2 guys would be expensive, Hendrickson would probably be the most expensive player of the bunch. Now, before the season started, Hendrickson requested a trade because he was looking for a contract adjustment. Ultimately decided to kind of pull back on that trade request and just play out this year as well. But they have the Raiders coming to town, so it should be an easy win for Cincinnati. And at 4-5, they should have good enough reason to believe that they're not out of the playoff race. But if they were to lose, that could bring on a huge fire sale with someone like Hendrickson or T. Higgins on the way out. Now, Hendrickson, by the way, he's been their only good pass rusher this season, 7 sacks in 8 games. So if the Bengals have any hope this year of accomplishing anything, it's going to have to be with Trey on the field. So they would really have to wave the white flag if they decide to trade him. This would be your home run trade. This would be the Falcons give the Bengals a call and make them an offer that Cincinnati cannot refuse, even if they feel like they still have a good shot at this. And that's probably going to be a little bit too rich for my taste because I don't want to give up a 1st round draft pick. And if you give up a 2nd round draft pick, man, now you're down to a 1st. What's that? A 4th and a couple 7ths. Like, that is skinny for the draft. So buyer beware with this one. It's going to cost you a pretty penny. We have more to get to on today's episode, so don't go anywhere. But first, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 10 million active members. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Here are my selections for this upcoming weekend. I like the more on Kyle Pitts. He has been hot the last couple of weeks. Also like the more for Thursday Night Football as we filmed this during our live show on Thursday for CJ Stroud at half a touchdown, and more on Saquon Barkley's rushings. So download the app today and use code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, run your game. How about a familiar face for trade rumor number 4? Dolphins defensive tackle, the veteran Calais Campbell, might be available because the Dolphins at 2-5 really couldn't afford to lose at home last week to a below 500 Cardinals team, because it's not going to get any easier the next week on the road in Buffalo. So if Miami loses this game at 2-6, one would think that a 36-year-old defensive tackle is probably not in their long-term plans. And if someone is willing to give them anything for someone that's probably going to be gone in a few months and this season not going to be a playoff year, I would imagine that Miami would be very open to this. Now, Campbell at 2 sacks isn't all that enticing. However, he would lead the Atlanta Falcons immediately in sacks this year if he came over. That's how low the bar is. So I'll also mention it would be a little bit of an embarrassing trade for Terry Fontenot. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about this from a simplistic level. He could have signed Campbell. He didn't. Campbell goes to Miami, and then he ends up giving up a draft pick for someone he could have had back in free agency. The only thing you're really saving is you don't have to pay Campbell quite as much because you're only paying half of his salary for half a season. But I think that Terry Fontenot would rather pay the full salary, not give up a draft pick for someone he could have had from the start. And so I wonder if Fontenot goes, no, I can't make this trade. It would be such an embarrassment and such a self-own of the Atlanta Falcons trade for a player that they had last year and then let walk and then wanted him back. That's not a very good look for the GM. Before we look at the 5th and final trade rumor, predict the score for me on Sunday. Falcons versus Cowboys. I'm going to say Atlanta wins 49-14. I'm thinking this is going to be an ass-kicking up and down the field from start to finish. 5th guy to watch for, a different position. It is former Oklahoma Sooner Brian Asamoah, a linebacker who just hasn't really found a home in Minnesota in their starting lineup or on the field much at all. He was a day 2 draft pick by the Vikings. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN said that he's a trade candidate for Minnesota. I mean, he basically lost his starting gig to a UDFA last year, Ivan Pace out of Cincinnati. This year, there's not a whole lot to talk about with Asamoah. He just hasn't had a big role on this defense at all. He doesn't get on the field very much to begin with. So the Vikings could be open to trading him. I'm sure they are very much open to it if they get a fair offer. So the question really comes down to, is any team going to ask for Asamoah? The reason why I bring him up is you've got Troy Anderson, who's been battling a knee injury. You got Lanneman, who spent time on IR earlier this year. And you got Bertrand, your rookie from Notre Dame, in concussion protocol right now. You are very skinny at inside linebacker. And Caden Ellis is basically wearing 2 hats, outside pass rusher and inside linebacker. Like, he is playing all over the field right now. So maybe Raheem Morris goes, we just got to bring in some depth at that position just so we can get Anderson and Landman some time to get healthy and hold down the fort a little bit. One more sleeper trade target I'll toss out there is Jadeveon Clowney. I would be shocked if he's on this team on November 6th. I mean, his career is kind of coming to an end soon. He's getting up there in the age column for sure. He's not producing much for Carolina anyway. This team's obviously going nowhere. Now, obviously, interdivision trades are rare, but I don't feel like these two franchises are so bitter against one another. They can't swap a 30-plus-year-old defensive end for a future 7th-round draft pick. They're rare, but division trades do happen. Go ask TJ Hawkinson about it. So this would be a sleeper one to keep an eye on. So let me know what your predictions are. Will the Falcons trade for an edge rusher? Like, do you believe they're actually going to get it done, or are they going to stand pat? Let me know in the comment section below. Coming up next, we have our mailbag. So get your questions in right now. Hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. Like Grand Limousine, if you Super Chat, we guarantee it gets on screen for everyone watching to see. Jay is here.
Got a lot of questions, a lot of good questions.
I know Jay's here when he wants to fire Raheem Morris.
Already.
The crazy thing is, it's like I end up having to defend Raheem Morris, and he deserves a lot of defense because he should not be fired, obviously. But like, it's not like Raheem Morris was even my number one head coach candidate. But here I am now, like Raheem Morris's agent, because Jay always wants him fired.
What was your number one candidate in the offseason or when they're hiring?
Go back in time. People watching right now are laughing at you, Joey, because I called Bill Belichick a Falcon. And that was a mixture. It was a mixture of a lot of reporting. If you remember, like it was nearly a done deal by a lot of big J's with blue check marks out there. So I trusted them. I got burned a little bit on that. But I still felt like Belichick could come in here, and the argument for not hiring Belichick was people in the front office might lose their jobs because of the way he operates. Newsflash, people in the Falcons front office may deserve to lose their jobs because they haven't won anything in a long time.
Yeah, because the way they operate.
Yes. So spare me the don't hire Bill, they might fire this guy. Yeah, you don't want to root for anyone to get fired. I get that. But when you work in the NFL industry, you also know what you're signing up for. And that is an industry that's very fluid and a ton of turnover and change from one regime to the next. And ultimately, this is a league that's all about the fans. And if you can't give the fans a good show, heads are going to roll. So I never liked the argument of don't hire Belichick because he might come in here and shake things up. They should be shaken up. This has not been a good team for a long time. So that was my 2 cents on it. But that was a long time ago. Jason, the drinking show. Yeah. There was Belichick was a Falcon. Dallas Turner. I by the way, I still kind of keep loose tabs on the other rookie edge rushers this year just to see what could have been potentially. The crazy thing is Braylon Trice, like I don't know what role he would have had or what kind of production he would have had this year, but that's a bummer for sure. They sure could use some help right now. Who was the other person I called a Falcon? Oh, Justin Fields. I was high on Justin Fields.
Okay.
But I also was high on Justin Fields being a Falcon when Arthur Smith was going to be the head coach still.
Okay, so quick question. I visited, for all these who don't know, I've been here for 5 months. So I visited on the weekend of the draft. Mm-hmm. Give me a 2-second play-by-play of your face when you found out Atlanta drafted. I need to go back and find that on stream.
That was it. And here was the tough thing about it. And people get tired of this conversation, so we won't go too deep on it. I was a big Michael Penix stan and believer in the pre-draft process. My quarterback rankings went Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix. Maybe Nix and McCarthy are flip-flop. I don't remember. But those are the front four. So people are like, you don't like Penix as a player. No, I do. I just don't agree with the logic behind the pick. And we don't need to open that can of worms, but fair to say right now they could use an edge rusher.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree on that. And obviously if Penix plays well, it's not going to matter. But you signed Kirk Cousins to maximize your window right now, and you didn't really help that window right now. And then in round 2, you turned around and drafted a player at a position you were super deep at and would be a healthy scratch for the first half of the season so far. So not using your premium picks to help out the 2024 team very much, and that is showing at the moment. But again, if Penix plays well for the next 12, 15 years, no one's going to be too upset if the Falcons didn't get Liatu Latu with Penix as a Pro Bowl quarterback. How is Dallas Turner doing in the NFL? Let's check it out. Let's do a Google. Dallas, do I want it? But it does sound like it was going to be Latu over Dallas if it was one or the other. Turner this year has 1 sack. I want to see what's he kind of. He hasn't played a ton. He plays 20% of the snaps, 85 snaps on defense. So not getting a ton of run. What about Latu? Because I think that's really the name to watch for.
Latu has 2 sacks, 14 tackles.
Okay, and he's playing about 55% of snaps. So if they were going to take an edge rusher, it would have been Latu because they wanted to trade back into round 1 to get Latu. So that's really the name to like monitor. Monitor Dallas Turner just to make fun of me, but monitor Latu to see what could have been because that's actually what they would have done. Okay, are we ready to jump into our mailbag?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay. Mason B. Petey just wanted to say thank you for hosting this Falcons channel. The Thursday live show and watch parties are like hanging out with my buddies. Love the candor and wit. Mason, thank you so much. That warms my heart. I love what I do because I get to hang out with people like Mason B. Okay. And I get to get punished for getting 3 guys. It was so funny. If you guys remember, like we can have a good laugh about it now. The like weeks leading up to the draft, I was like, Turner's a Falcon. Turner's a Falcon. I know I got Fields wrong. I know I got Belichick wrong, but I'm not getting this one wrong. If I get this one wrong, you guys can pick a punishment for me. And the moment the Penix pick came in, the chat was just drunk stream. Got to get drunk stream. We got a $5 super chat coming in from Jay. What's the minimum expectation for Raheem? If he fails to win a playoff game with this roster and elite quarterback play, do you still want him here next season? I would say the expectation for the Falcons back in August was to make the playoffs. My expectation was for them to win a playoff game. If they don't accomplish either one of those things, I don't think Raheem Morris is going to get fired after 1 year if they finish 9-8 and just miss the playoffs. But people are going to be upset and frustrated that a window was missed. But what's the minimum expectation? The absolute minimum, I would say, is to make the playoffs. You sign Kirk Cousins to that monster deal. It has to be to make the playoffs immediately. That's the minimum, Jay. My personal expectation is to win a home playoff game. And then we go from there.
Do you want to start with that one for mailbag? Or
we can start with that one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, here we go. Are we ready to jump into a mailbag?
Let's do it.
I've seen a lot of questions about the watch parties. I'm sorry, the watch parties will be returning for the Saints game. That's not this Sunday, but next Sunday. It's just a little bit of an unlucky scheduling conflict the last couple of weeks with certain teams playing at the same time in studio space, and there's only one of me, so it just kind of creates a little bit of a bottleneck, and I'm really sorry about that. But we will get the watch parties back soon, don't worry, and then we'll be smooth sailing from there, but I am sorry about that. Okay, are we ready to get on into a mailbag? Here we go. Welcome on into Falcons Today. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson, and on today's episode, we're going to answer questions in a mailbag that happened during our live show, which airs every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so come hang out with us if you have a question you would like to ask. First one comes in via Super Chat from Jay. What's the minimum expectation for Raheem if he fails to win a playoff game with this roster and elite quarterback play? Do you still want him here next season? I think the absolute minimum expectation for this team going back to August is to make the playoffs. My expectation for them was to win a playoff game. I'm not going to say this is a Super Bowl or bust season. I think that's probably putting a little bit too much pressure and too high of expectations. But I think this year one of a new quarterback, a new head coach, and a new play caller was to probably make the playoffs given all the investment they made in Cousins. My expectation, though, was a playoff win. If they make the playoffs and don't win a playoff game, I still don't think Raheem Morris should be fired. At the way they played so far, unless they lose every single game the rest of the way by 30 points, I don't think Raheem Morris is getting fired after one season. He's done a really good job so far. Gabriel, who are your favorite edge rusher trade candidates? Gabriel, really good question. We can peek at 5 guys that kind of have this mixture of worthy to look at and also plausible for trade as well. Like, I know everyone wants to pursue a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby. I got bad news for you guys. They're not getting traded. But there are some players that I think could have a really good chance of getting traded. Joey, if you want to throw on screen the 5 trade candidates. Zadarius Smith, Azeez Ojulari are two names that jump out to me the most. Hendrickson, I think, is going to cost too much, and I don't think the Bengals are going to give up, especially if they win on Sunday against a bad Raiders team in Cincinnati. Calais Campbell, that'd be just too awkward, I feel like, for Fontenot to trade for a player that he could have signed but let walk in free agency. And Asamoah would help in depth for the linebacker position. But for me, Zadarius Smith and Ojulari, those two guys jump out to me the most. And if I had to pick one, I think Zadarius Smith is the better player. It would be a little bit of a schematic change from him going in a 4-3 defense to a 3-4 defense. So maybe Ojulari could be a better fit. He's probably going to be Ojulari, that is, maybe a little bit on the cheaper side for a draft compensation, but those two guys are probably going to be somewhere in the same neighborhood of a 4th to 5th round draft pick. So who are my favorite edge rushers? I'll go with Zadarius Smith and Ojulari. If I really had to pick one between the two of them, I'd probably say Zadarius Smith. Jose Santana, do you think we'll be more run-heavy this week as opposed to pass-happy? Great question, Jose, because the Cowboys' run defense is dead last in the National Football League. Meanwhile, the Falcons' run game, it's middle of the pack. It's 15th in terms of rushing yards per week. However, you can also see the Falcons are not very committed to the run. I mean, they're just middle of the pack as well. So, to me, it seems like a pretty simple equation. If the Falcons want to get more rushing yards, they have to run the football more. And at an even rate, they could be a top 5 rushing team in football if they committed to it. But they didn't sign Kirk Cousins and pay him all that money to run the ball third most in the NFL. So my guess is they probably will be a little bit more run heavy. You might see some more runs on like 1st and 10. I know the analytics nerds out there hate when you do that, but 1st and 10, you could just rattle off 5-6 yards and really get the Cowboys defense on their heels in early downs. Dat1 Falcons fan, will the Falcons end the season with less than 6 sacks if they don't make moves to acquire a pass rusher by the trade deadline? Because knowing the Falcons, they don't do shit about the pass rusher. They have 6 right now through 8 weeks. My guess is if they don't add anyone, they'll probably finish with, I'll go with 13 sacks. Maybe they get a game where they get like 2 sacks or something, and that kind of really skews the data. But yeah, I'm feeling, once again, a really down year from the pass rusher position. The Falcons are dead last in sacks in the NFL, and it's not even all that close. So they'll end the season with more than 6 sacks because that would mean they don't get another sack the rest of the way. They're at 6 right now. But how about this, Dat1 Falcons fan? Over under 12 sacks. That's a good number. They're at 6, the halfway mark. Are they going to exceed, stay the same, or regress from the first half of the year? I'll ask you the question. Now, before we get to the other questions on today's episode, quick shout out to our awesome sponsor, Game Time. One thing I love about Game Time is they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time also has a new feature called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. That way you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Archangel, I'm definitely not for it, but could the Falcons end up pulling a fast one on us and end up trading Algier or Pitts or maybe even Penix for picks or a player or two? No, no, and no. If there was one to get traded and you forced me to pick one of these guys, I would say it's Tyler Algier because Kyle Pitts is playing at a really good level. They're finally getting what they wanted to get out of Pitts when they took the 4th overall pick and used that on him. So I don't think Pitts is going anywhere, and Penix is absolutely not going anywhere. It would just make zero. It would be a fireable offense. Unless they got more than what they used to draft Penix, a first and then some. But even then, you don't guarantee that first-round draft pick would be as high as the one you had when you selected Penix. So it's still a gamble. Penix is absolutely going nowhere. Kyle Pitts is going nowhere. And I don't think Algiers going anywhere unless, I don't want to say a certain name because then I'll put a curse on them, but insert star running back on insert 5 or 6 win team tears his ACL on Sunday. Like, that's really the only way where a team would be so desperate they call the Falcons and go, we'll give you a 3rd-round pick for Algier right now. And the Falcons go, man, we love Algier, but we need some draft picks because we used our 3rd-round pick on Judon, and he's given us 1.5 sacks through 8 weeks so far. So that's the only plausible path I see for Algier getting dealt. And that's a pretty extreme path right before the deadline. Pitts, no chance. Penix, double doom on Penix going anywhere. Dark Ham, how many interceptions do you think Dak is going to throw? Dak last year threw a bunch of picks that were not really his fault. He probably led the NFL in picks that went through receivers' hands first. This year, he's throwing bad picks. So with Bates out there and Terrell, who's already up to 2 picks, and hopefully Simmons coming back, I'm going to go with the 2 INT day for Dak Prescott. D. Morris Meeks, how do you feel about Raheem coaching job so far compared to the other first-year coaches around the league? That's a great question, Meeks. Kind of rattling off the first-year head coaches. Dan Quinn is probably doing the best job of anyone. I would say the hand that he got dealt was not one of the best, and he has that Washington team at 6-2. So I'd say our old friend Dan Quinn's probably doing the best of all the first-year coaches. Then probably Raheem Morris. Joey, who are the other first-year head coaches right now?
Is Canales first year?
Dave Canales, that's a great one. He's got to be last at 1-6. Who else am I forgetting right now?
Harbaugh.
Oh, Harbaugh, thank you. Yes, I would say Harbaugh is probably right behind Raheem Morris. So I'm going right now Dan Quinn, Raheem Morris, Jim Harbaugh, Canales I'm putting last. There might only be 4 new coaches.
Mike McDonald.
Oh, thank you, Mike McDonald. Wait. Oh, for the Seahawks. I was thinking of Dolphins head coach. And AP. I forgot. Oh, I really botched all this. Callahan. All right, Callahan's right above Canales. Gerard Mayo. This is a really bad segment. I'm putting Gerard Mayo also. Callahan, Mayo, and Canales are in the ass category. And then Harbaugh is in his own mid category. Morris is second. Dan Quinn is first. And then Mike McDonald is with Harbaugh in the mid category. And then Antonio Pierce I'm putting in the ass category. That sums it up. Cade, when it comes to the problems with our pass rush, do you think the personnel or the scheme is the bigger problem? That's an excellent question. And it's a question that's not very easy to answer without having a good enough body of evidence on what Jimmy Lake's defense is supposed to look like. So as we get more weeks and more eyeballs on what Jimmy Lake wants to do, we'll have a better idea as to what is Jimmy Lake's scheme. It's also tough when the head coach is a defensive guy because where do you kind of point the finger to? A little bit more the coach or the DC. But right now I'm going to say yes to all the above. If you're twisting my arm and make me pick one, I would say personnel is not that bad to only have 6 sacks. So I'm inclined to go with the scheme a little bit, but at the same time, I don't know how scheme is to blame for guys just not winning one-on-one matchups. So I'll say personnel because they just didn't really the moves they made were strange. Like you don't add an you don't add an edge rush on the outside until you get Judon. But yet you kick Zach Harrison from defensive end to defensive tackle. But then you bring back 2 veterans, Eddie Goldman and Kentavious Street. And then in the draft, you draft 2 players at that same position in Rook and Dorless. You stocked up on defensive tackles and then moved one of your edge rushers to defensive tackle. Like, make that make sense. Cade, I do appreciate your question, though. I wish I could give you a better answer. I think I can give you a much better answer at the end of the year. But halfway through the season, it's just difficult to have a really good pulse on what is Jimmy Lake's scheme so far. We need more data points. But who you got? Falcons or Cowboys? Let me know. I'm going with the Dirty Birds. I do want to hear from you in the comment section below, though, to wrap up today's video. All right, boys and girls. That is all of our scheduled programming. So now we're kind of on borrowed time. If you guys want to keep the show going, super chats, keep us in the studio. Otherwise, we do have to sign off so someone else can come in and film their content. Although that will be coming to an end hopefully soon because Chat Sports is expanding their, Manifest Destiny, this bad boy. And there's already construction going on for the office space next door that we're going to Berlin Wall that piece and knock it over and then move on east this time. Big Falcon with a $5 super chat. Tapped in late today. At what point will the Falcons become consistent with our defense? Will beating Dallas be the first step? I don't think there will be a consistency from the defense this year. We're 9 weeks into the year. This is a unit that probably is what it is at this point. It's a unit that can't get after the quarterback, but it's got enough star power in the secondary to kind of cover up some of those blemishes. So at what point will they become consistent? Probably never. How about this? If you could make a deal right now that every single week the Falcons give up 24 points, no more, no less, would you take that deal? You are locked into 24 points. I'd have to take that deal. I would be much more willing to bet on the offense scoring 25 than the defense not giving up 35. I'd take that deal. You make that deal? I'll make that deal.
I'd make that deal.
We
got a first-time super chatter.
404 love, first-time super chatter. 2-clap action for Mr. 404. 1, 2. Do you know what 2-clap is?
Yes, I was a little delayed
That
because I was hearing you in mine.
That was embarrassing. Let's try that again for 404. Little 2-clap action for 404 love. Little 1, 2. There we go. 404 love with another $2 super chat. We'll throw it on screen for you, Mr. Love. Drum roll, please. There it is. When will the next game day stream on here? It'll be the Saints game. So week 10, next Sunday. So 10 days from now, whatever the math is. But yeah, unfortunately, we had to kind of pause some of our watch parties the last few weeks just because of the way the NFL schedule worked out. Just a bit of a time crunch of a lot of games at the same time that we cover here at Chat Sports. So there's only one of me. There's only so many studios as well. So unfortunately, it has halted our watch parties, but I promise they will come back for week 10 against the Saints. And then it'll be smooth sailing from there, I believe, for the most part. Although the NFL, they love to kind of rearrange the schedule these days, so I don't want to make any too big of promises, but as things stand, we should be good to go unless they make some dramatic schedule changes. They should move that Falcons-Vikings game, by the way, to prime time. When Kirk Cousins returns, that has to get moved. That has no business being a noon time slot. We need to see Kirk Cousins in the Kirk Cousins game, which would only be fitting in prime time. Right?
Yeah, it really would.
That's got to be it. 404 love, I really appreciate your super chat, though. Like I said, if we continue to get more super chats, we can stay live. Otherwise, we do have to sign off. I've got Feisty Falcons fan from Iowa just got off. Welcome aboard. Happy to have you hanging out with us today. Peanut, do you think the Falcons are actually good, or do you think we benefit of playing banged-up teams? I think the Falcons are a good football team. If they benefited from playing banged-up teams, they'd look a lot more like the Houston Texans right now, who I think Vegas is calling them out for not being very good. The Texans, 6-2, are playing a 2-6 Jets team tonight, and the Jets are favorites. That has to be the first time a difference of 4 wins and the losing team is a favorite, right?
Especially when the Jets have looked as bad as they've looked the past couple weeks.
Yeah. It's not like they've won 2 in a row. You know what I mean? Or they just got Aaron Rodgers back or something.
No, I think they've lost like 5 of the last 6.
Yeah, they beat the Patriots. They won week 2 against the Titans. And then they were 0-1, then 1-1. Then they beat the Patriots on Thursday night to get to 2-1. And they've lost every game since then.
Yeah.
They're favored because they're missing Nico and Diggs.
That's fair, but still.
I don't think it's enough. I don't think Nico and Diggs can dramatically alter the line. They got Tank Dell. They got Robert Woods. No, those guys aren't as good as Nico and Diggs, but that seems a little bit of a violent. And Joe Mixon.
He's gone back-to-back 100-yard games as well.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. Okay. We will call it a day. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween, and we'll be back with more content throughout the week. I'll see you on Sunday for a breakdown of that Falcons-Cowboys game. Again, I'm really sorry that we're not going to be live for it. I would love to have been live for it. Just the way the schedule worked out, it didn't, work out in our favor this week, but rest assured, future weeks we'll be ready to roll. So enjoy your Halloween weekend, and I'll see you guys later.